Hey everyone, it's Lunch with Mal, and we're live today with the one and only Sylvia Frost, who I think a lot of authors know about because I want to say for like the last 6 or 7 years, you've been one of the preeminent cover designers, or at least one of the well-known, one of the most well-known ones. But why don't you take a moment to sort of introduce yourself, what you do, and like maybe tell a bit of your story about how you got into book cover design and where it's taken you.
Yeah, sure. First of all, it's so great to be here with you, Mal. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's such a treat. I have seen you around forever. I still remember, I think like the first time I saw you in my periphery at $20, and I was like, oh my gosh, who's that lady? She's so cool. So thank you so much for letting me onto your platform. A little bit about me. Hi, I'm Sylvia Frost. I run the Book Brander. I actually have been in independent publishing since, believe it or not, like 2013. So I have been here since the K-Boards days, which is how I got my start. I actually got my start as a writer. I remember, like, this is even further back. I remember like in 2011, I joined this website called critiquecircle.com. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of that website, but it was like a place back in the day where you could post your work and get feedback. And I
Mhm.
remember this guy was posting excerpts of his novel. And then he announced to everyone, like, I've been published. And I was like, you've been published? Like, what? How? Because like I was like so amazed that like
Mhm.
I was reading works by a published author. And then, he's like, oh, well, I'm self-publishing it, and then I kind of from there gone on to K-Boards. And like back in those early days, I do not have my degree in graphic design at the time. Actually, I was studying to become an opera singer, which is a fun fact about me.
That's a bit of a twist.
Yeah, it is. Like, yay, go Eastman. Not an opera singer now. But at the time, I sort of filtered into this space, and graphic design was like a hobby for me. I designed my singing professors like CD covers. Like, I would do a few little gigs here and there, and design posters for people. And I saw all these people had all these covers, and no, all apologies to the covers of 2013, but they were terrible. Like,
I published my first book in 2012, and I actually kind of knew a bit about graphic design because I've been in the space doing software and websites for years. And even knowing that, I did a terrible job because I was trying to make it look retro, like it was from the 60s, which was cool and all, but not great for selling books in 2012.
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
a real wild, wild west. And I just saw all these covers and I was like, Jesus Christ, like I can do better than this. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm not even very good. And spoiler, I was not, and I could still do better. It was a very, very different time than it is now.
Mhm.
And I also at the same time I was writing, and I published a serialized novel. This was back in the day when KU borrows were a thing, right? So everyone was writing purposefully short because of the
Yeah.
payout. And so I wrote like 4 serialized novels, two novellas, and then another just straight novel. And I was actually seeing a decent amount of success, but the treadmill of just publishing a book a month plus, I went to a writing workshop, and I was really passionate about having a certain level of quality in my books, and it was kind of demoralizing to see how difficult it was to get to the level I wanted to get and how far I had yet to go.
Mm.
And so I took a break from publishing at the same time I was still running my cover design business. I had just graduated. I had a degree in opera. I was like working at a classical music radio station. And like, I was like, oh my God, how the heck am I going to make my living? Right? Like,
Right.
I'm kind of a little bit underemployable. I was working in like a corporate-ish environment, and I would do all these cool artistic things. And then basically what would happen is it would go up the change, and like it would just kind of get stalled. So like they would be like, do this, and then I would make a whole video, but then like they would never approve it. And I was just like, oh,
Right.
this is not for Sylvia's. So at that point, I went and I kind of started growing my design business. And, actually, there was a period where it was kind of hard to be a designer in the space where I kind of had to level up my own design skills. And at the same time, I started doing these massive pre-made events. And that's what really exploded my business, where I went from being a one-woman shop to first bringing on my project manager, and then another designer, and then another, and then an illustrator, And, every time I do these pre-made sales, it is like a huge marketing opportunity for me, as well as like, selling a lot of book covers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I exploded and grew my business. And now I design for people. I design for some French publishers. I design for Hachette.
Wow.
I design for, design from for a lot of different people in a lot of different spaces. And this year, recently, I was really, really, really blessed to be able to go to the RAM conference run by the indomitable and amazing Sky Warren. And as part of like the reason I was going there was she was like, well, we want to see more data. Like, it's great that you have like, intuitions around the market, but like, can you prove it? And I was like, that's a really good question. Can I? And so I set off and I gathered all this data, which is unfortunately exclusive to RAM. So I can't share any of that data specifically, but I obviously can talk about the general conclusions that I've learned. And from there, it really kind of like, I decided that I really wanted to pivot to not just telling people that I was the book brander and market focused, but kind of being able to back up my decisions and strategic analysis with like actual numbers. And so that's kind of the direction that I'm really moving in 2025, is kind of like really being like, okay, well, let's prove it.
Yeah.
Let's prove it. Let's not just like look at the top Amazon 100. Let's like have someone go through, let's make a spreadsheet, which is not my strength, but that's why I have someone else do it.
Right. Yeah. So it's really interesting that you pivoted into that. And you came there because you're right. Having done a lot, like I think I've probably done about 100 covers myself, but it's like I don't advertise that I do it because it's not like a super profitable thing a lot of the time, because I don't do it enough that I'd be fast at it. For me, it takes like 4 to 5 times longer to do a cover than it would for someone else. But I need the creative outlet every now and then, so I do it anyway. So I've done a lot of covers, and I've also helped a lot of authors with their covers, because when on the advertising side, you got ads that are cooking, you've got a blurb that's really well, you have a blurb you think is good, but people that when people land on the product page, that something's turning them off, and you try the blurb a few times, and the cover is kind of in the back of your mind, that like it doesn't quite match the vibe, or perhaps it's not quite, it looks amateurish. Although I've actually discovered that an amateurish looking cover is better than a cover that misses the trope and genre.
Yes,
elements.
no question.
I've seen some of them just like look at this cover, I'm like, how does this book even sell? But like at least it's conveying the right things.
Yes.
And so I had to do we kind of came came to the same place through another path, where we had to teach authors how to do genre and trope research, and also even how to like dissect their own book to understand what tropes they have, so that they can properly present those tropes and then grab people. And then how do we match that branding and that information from the blurb, the cover, and then the ad to make sure it all meshes and whatnot. So it kind of seems like you came to the same conclusion. You're like, well, I need more data so I can like get people to do the right thing to help them. Otherwise, they're going to come with this wish list of things that they like that may be completely wrong for selling their book.
Yeah, I mean, I've always known that, but it has always been intuition, and sometimes my intuition has been incorrect. And what I am a words and images girly. I am not a math and science girly, but what I hate more than numbers is not succeeding. So, and more than not succeeding, I hate to think that I'm providing a product for my client that is not going to help them. That is like, no, kill it with fire.
No, I completely agree.
So I'm like, okay, I can't, and this is why. So as part of the RAM talk, I did a couple case studies with, a couple different authors using Facebook ads to test covers. And again, this is a product that I'm we will be launching a Facebook ad testing package in March. We won't be running the ads. I'm still working out the details of all of that, but it was so illuminating to see what actually performed and how big the differences could be. And like, I also tested blurbs using Facebook ads. And I am such a proponent of testing, because I think that we can have a lot of intuition about what the market tells us. And I think a lot of times this leads us into not copying, but trying to be exactly what someone else is doing. And that is often a safer path. But like what I found was that like, even within that, right? If I went to like the Amazon top 100 for dark romance, which was one of these categories, and I look up the 7 different kinds of covers that are selling in that space, I can make an educated guess to say, well, your book is kind of like this, so we should do this type of cover with this kind of blurb, right? But like, so I designed 7 different kinds of covers, each that matched the archetype, and then I tested them all to see which performed the best. And every single person that I talked to, that I made them try and guess which one they thought would win, most of them it wasn't like some of them got the number 1 performer right, but every single person got the rest of the order wrong, including myself. And so it's like what you think is going to be effective is not always, there's like no other way to know than to know. And I think a lot of authors especially look at the idea of like, oh my God, like you want me to spend this much on a cover? I'm like, well, how much are you going to spend on ads? And then how much is that going to multiply over that time? And like, how much are you losing because your ads aren't even growing because you don't have the right thing? And like, the right thing isn't like necessarily the most expensive cover, but what it is like the right cover. And like, the more I go into this, the more I feel that like you do not know until you test, until you, because what people say they like, what you think you like, all that, like, pardon my French, BS. The only truth is like the actual result. So that's kind of, and it's way more expensive to find that result on your release day than it is by spending like a couple $100 extra bucks before your release day. Especially if it's first in series, man.
First in series covers obviously the most important when it comes to marketing, and that's something that when we run ads for authors that we'll do a lot, where we'll be coming up with all the ad creative for authors, because we run ads both like sort of in a consulting fashion with people and also just as a straight up agency service where we run ads for people, and they'll ask why we're running half of the ad images that we're running. Like we'll be doing like all sorts of different kinds of things, and the answer is like because the data will tell us which one works. It's none of us have a crystal ball good enough to know what the there's every audience that you target with Facebook, every book, every cover, every blurb, they're all different. They're all this unique combination. So it's impossible to say for sure what's going to work best. So we just put a bunch of options out there and then figure out which ones work better. Although I think, having done this for so long, we don't have to run quite as many options, and we're surprised less often than we used to be about which ones win. But yeah, there's still sometimes there are still surprises where like, I thought this would be a slam dunk and nobody cares about this one at all. It's all this other one that matters.
And I think like the one thing I noticed overall that was really big that I don't think people like have fully accepted is how much, at least when, and like the other thing is, the thing that is true is that it's like, okay, when I run a test or anyone runs a test for one cover, like there's no immutable law, right? That says that this is true for every single book within this genre, or this is true for whatever. Like, I'm such a big believer in this idea that it's like, you need to find the right solution for that particular product. And so like, I can know what has worked. But like the thing that I really loved about testing was that it actually gave me the freedom to experiment, because it gave me the freedom to do something that I thought wouldn't work, because I knew that I would get an answer on whether it wouldn't work or not. So I wouldn't have to I would be able to take smaller risks here and not have to take a huge risk there. And I'll be honest and say that generally those smaller risks tend not to pan out. Like generally they are risky for a reason, right? Everyone's not doing their cover like that for a reason. But I also believe that if you are the person who finds the thing that works, that's going to be way more valuable than looking like everybody else is, because now you're the one starting the new trend or figuring out the thing that everyone else isn't doing.
Yeah, that's actually really awesome. That's one of the things I always worry about. People sometimes say like, I want a cover that looks like these ones. I'm like, well, then you're just going to blend in and become unnoticeable. You have to figure out how to like convey what the book's about really clearly and stand out.
Yeah, it's tough though, because I mean, I found again and again and again, generally, the further I departed from what was standard, the worse I did overall. That was something I noted overall with ads. I mean, it was a little bit depressing.
Yeah,
because I'm the
it is.
person who loves to innovate and I love to be different and I love to stand out. Like
Well, yeah,
that's
as artists, we always want to do like fun and interesting and new things, but you can't. You can do like a little bit of fun and new.
so much less than you think
Yes, that is
generally,
so
but
true.
that's why I like testing, because
Yeah,
I get to prove that to myself, right?
yeah,
It's not like I get to let myself experiment in like
yeah.
one way and then test it and whatever, and then there is some value. I remember someone said once about the song by Outkast, Shake It. Like, I'm
Mhm.
old, but like, this is like back a
Oh, I
long time.
remember.
So there's this story about this song. When they first played it, everyone hated it. Like, this song was a hit, right? But
Yeah.
no radios were playing it. Like, people would switch the radio off. It was not performing well. So the record company paid the radio stations to play it specifically sandwiched between two songs that were already popular. And they did this again and again and again until people now liked it and it's a hit and it
Hmm.
became familiar. And so it's like, it is possible to get people to like new and different, but you have to sandwich it within the familiar, and you have to be intentional and realize that there's a cost, upfront costs that you'll pay, and maybe how difficult it is to advertise or something else. But I fully believe that once you get over that hump, you've set yourself up in a space where people will remember that song in a way that they wouldn't remember the 16 other things that sound identical.
That's really interesting. Actually, I want to jump back one thing to
Yeah,
something you said
sorry.
before about. No, it's okay. I forgot to bring it up. I completely agree about the cost of a bad cover when it comes to advertising. Like a lot of authors, I feel like authors. So I have my own little story. I used to be in shop in high school, and
Mm.
we would have to we were doing metalworking, and we were filing down pieces of metal, and a lot of people were just filing like the middle of the with the file, and the shop teacher was always like, "You paid for the whole file, use the whole file," telling you like to run it down the whole thing. And I feel like or like the clean your plate mentality or something like that. And authors have this idea with their book covers that it has a certain amount of value. You paid $3,000-$4,000 for it, and you have to use up that value before you can get it changed. And so we're very reluctant to change our book covers, also because sometimes like they're our precious baby, and we love them. But you're right. Like $10 a day ad for 30 days is $300, and so if you have the wrong book cover, and the right book cover might cost you only $300, well, in 2 months you'll be in the negative, 100% over what it would have cost you to get the right cover and then run ads.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have really interesting feelings about rebranding. I haven't rebranded my own books, but part of that is because I don't pay any attention to my books at all. They do not exist. They do not exist to me. I just happily take the $100 that they pay me every month from not having to touch them or think about them. I am sorry to all of my readers. That if anyone ever read my book, I love you. I will and write again, although not under this name likely and in secret. But yeah, but I haven't rebranded.
Mhm.
And some of that is because I don't run ads to my books. My books are not to trend currently.
Makes
They
sense.
would not be easy to market. Yeah, so that's why I don't do it. But I've seen people pay lots of money to rebrand, and even with running ads, they haven't seen huge changes. Now, these people were people who had really on market covers already, and it's
Yeah.
not like they were like it's not like they were just like improving something that they already had versus going a completely new different direction. So like when it comes to rebranding, I would say unless you think that you're going to make that back via ads, and like for example, like let's say you had a book that was like a stellar performer for you, like it has always been your bread and butter, and like recently you noticed it's become harder to advertise. That's a great candidate for rebranding. But
Yeah.
like going back to a series that like was always kind of a donkey and thinking that you're going to put a new coat of paint on it and it's going to now like deliver for you, that's a really bad idea. Don't do it.
Oh yeah, I would agree with, especially if you rebrand in such a way that would cause you to have to buy a bunch of covers, like to redo like
Yeah,
10, 15
a
books or
whole
something like that.
series. A box set is
Yeah,
a great way to rebrand.
yeah,
Strongly
I
recommend
advocate that a
that.
lot. But I have had some scenarios where I've had some authors who have, like in one case, a 26 book long series, and we were having more trouble than I wanted to getting book one to convert. So
Mm,
we actually tried out 3 different covers for book one,
yeah,
found the right cover, and because it's a 26 book long series, we brought conversion up by 15%,
yeah,
and over the course of a couple of months,
then it's worth it.
yeah,
Did
made a
you
ton
have
of
to
money.
rebrand every single cover though?
No, we did it in such a fashion that it still fit the theme well enough that the
So
other
you
covers
just
are okay.
that's another way that's really smart, to just rebrand book one. I think that's really smart.
Because if we did 26 books,
Yeah,
it would take it a year or more to be profitable again.
Yeah.
On top of that, so
Yeah.
but also box sets. A lot of times I'll say to people like, let's make a series of box sets and try the new cover design on those, and see if we can
I
get.
think that everyone in PNR and should be rebranding their old people covers with object-based box sets. That's like my opinion of 2025. Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe PNR is just such a space where it's not performing well because if romantasy is so big and you're like, well, I'm just going to write my next romantasy novel, then it's like fine. But like, I've seen PNR is really moving to look more like romantasy covers, to like take that romantasy audience. We did this rebranding project for an PNR author that we've had forever, and we had these really, really old, but I still thought they were kind of nice people covers for her vampire series, and we like rebranded the box set, and like we've just gotten so many requests for people to buy these in paperback who like love the original series but were never buying it because it had a person on the cover. So like people under 25 really do not want people on covers. Generally, what I've seen is that people have, especially in the romance space, a resistance to buying anything that's going to be a physical object that's going to signal that I'm reading a sexy novel.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Which has sort of always been the case, but I think that we're seeing more and more people wanting to buy and getting excited about print.
Younger folks are really all about print.
They really love print. So that would be a way where I would think, okay, if you're like, you've got a really good brand that's done really well in ebook, but your print sales have never really done that well, like that's another really good opportunity.
Awesome. We've actually got a bunch of questions. You can't see them all because
I can't see anything except you. So you'll have to read them.
Even better. I was going to mention, by the way, that if you have been seeing the comments, that there's actually like the way that we stream now into Facebook groups, you actually can't see half the people that are watching or anything. But so sometimes people are like, wow, you've only got like 10, 15 people watching. I'm like, no, there's a lot more, believe me.
That's okay. I love all 10 of you. Jerry. No, I'm just kidding.
So Laura asks, can we talk about exclusive images versus finding good stock models? Is it worth the cost to buy a great image, and tips on finding stock models?
I do not know, Laura. Like if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have like come up with some nonsense. And that's not true. It wouldn't have been nonsense. It would have been all like the thoughts and ideas I have. But like, I feel like after I've gotten into testing, my feeling is just like, I don't know. I haven't tested it. Can't tell you. I've seen, what I will tell you is like the testing that I've done, again, I've just been seeing like those people under 25 really loving objects overall.
Right. So in some regards, it might not matter.
So I don't know if like that is like because they hate stock images, because I didn't have thousands of dollars to drop on an exclusive stock image for my tests. Unfortunately, I'm not that wealthy yet. Buy enough covers for me, Laura, and maybe I can answer your question.
Do you find, like, even without having tested this with like people's reactions, have you ever seen like any sort of even rough correlation between people who get custom photo shoots or buy one-off images versus people who use stock? So they seem to perform better one way or the other?
People that are using people on their covers, like most, not all, but most of the people that are using people on their covers and that are exclusive, like most of the people in the top 100 who are using people on their covers are using exclusive models. Not all at all. There are lots of people who are not. So don't come at me if you're like, but Sylvia, I know, I see you. I know you don't. But a lot, I would say the majority. That's actually one of the things that I didn't count, but I just know looking at it, I can tell you there are a lot. And it's hard. It's a chicken egg argument, right? Because if you're in the Amazon top 100, you've got money to burn. And so you're like, well, I've got an extra couple $1,000s sitting in my pocket and I want to differentiate myself. And this is what I see my competition doing, and so on and so forth. What I will say is that it's not necessary. I think that, and it's all really space dependent, but like it is not a requirement. And unless you've got the money burning a hole in your pocket, don't do it, is kind of my feeling. But I think it must have a positive effect because lots and lots of people are doing it. So like, I think for me, I actually had to make this calculus recently. As I said, I'm thinking of getting back into writing and publishing under a different name. And I was like, well, I want to treat myself. I want a fancy exclusive stock image. Like, why not? It's just so dumb because I'm a cover designer. Like, of all the people in the world that do not need an exclusive stock image, it is. And yet I was like, wow, this is so hot. And it was a hot image, friends. But I decided against it because I'm like, for a bunch of different reasons. But like, the number one was that the amount different I would have to pay versus the benefit would not make sense at the scale of advertising that I was planning on running. I think like if you're planning on spending like tens of thousands of dollars on Facebook a month, yeah, probably. I don't know where that dividing line is, but it's, for me in my head, it's an economy of scale thing of like basically what percentage of your line budget is it?
I think personally too, I would think about like if you're writing romances where every book is about a different guy, then it might not be worth it because like a lot of times you'll pay like several $100s.
Oh, I mean, for the stock images that people are using that are good, it's $1,000.
Yeah,
really.
Whereas you could actually probably do a custom photo shoot for $5,000 to $7,000. Just to kind of put that in perspective.
Finding male models that are hot enough is very difficult.
That's good.
That's a good point. There are many. There are like lower end. Not lower end, but there are people at all ends of the stock photo spectrum. What I've seen is that unless you're in the top 1% of hotness, it does not make sense to go with an exclusive stock image because there will be a guy that is hotter that is not exclusive. And so it's like, okay, what's the barometer? Like you want the guy who is the hottest and the most exclusive. That's number one. Number two is the hottest and maybe not as exclusive. And then below that is a guy that's exclusive, but not as hot. And below that is a guy that is not exclusive and not hot. Like that's the ranking.
That's an interesting way of thinking of it. Yeah. So for me, it was a little bit different because my covers all have women on them and it's a lot easier to find hot.
Oh yeah. That's easy.
Yeah. And so I paid $5,000 per photo shoot, did 5 photo shoots and have like 50,000 bespoke images now.
Oh yeah. Was that Gene Mullica?
No, I did with Andrew Dobell from Creative Edge.
Nice. I don't know him.
He's he did a lot of Michelangelo's early covers and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
I think he still does some for Michelangelo. But the reason why for me it made sense is I have 45 books with the same person on the cover.
Yes.
So stock couldn't do it. I had to do custom images. I probably did not need to do 5 photo shoots. I probably could have gotten away with 3. Saved myself $10,000. Well, actually, some of them were more because I had custom armor and outfits made and everything.
Yeah, the outfits are the tricky thing. You probably could have done one and like just like changed small details, but I'm not. But it's all. But clearly, it was like a good decision because
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
It's fun. Hey, that's the other thing I'll say. Like, I have a good friend that I do a lot of consulting for. And I'm always like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, I don't know if it's going to be cost effective. And she's like, it's fun, Sylvia, and I have the money. I'm doing it.
I mean, you're right.
Don't undersell that. Like, whatever gets you keep writing and gets you excited, that has a real tangible monetary value too, beyond just like your ability to generate sales.
I said to people a lot, I'm like, well, which of these things should I write? And like, which of these things would you enjoy writing and therefore could write more of?
Yes. So much that.
Like if you can make more money writing genre A, but you can only do 1 a year, but you'll make slightly less writing genre B, but you can do 5 a year because you love it. You'll make more money on B.
Totally.
So I've got tons of questions. We probably actually won't get through all of them, to be honest.
Sorry, guys. If you guys have more questions and you want to just like pop them in a Facebook comment somewhere, I'll answer them. So don't worry.
You could probably also tag her in the question here, and she'll be able to see it later on.
Yeah, tag me in the question and write it down, and I'll answer later.
Also, before I forget, Sylvia has 2 websites you can check out. One is thebookbrander.com because that's her main business now, but you also still have pre-mades up on romancepremades.com too, right?
Yeah, we've got a good couple left. And I know some of them are people. Don't come at me. People covers are still selling. They still work. So every cover that I made is because I know that it's still, I've seen others bestseller in that genre publishing this year. So like I might say like, oh, people covers aren't doing them as much, but like if 25% of people are still doing something, it is still worth trying that avenue.
I think you're right. Julia V says, would you say that UF covers should move away from people too? Harkening back to your comment about PNR moving away from people.
Test it. That's my advice. My advice is to absolutely test for your brand, because I've seen other people who wrote like PNR or UF, like, and now mind you, this was like a year or so ago, switching from people to object, and it performed worse for them. So My philosophy around this is that if you have never tried an object-based cover, you owe it yourself to find an idea, ideally, if you don't have the budget, a cheap and cheerful object-based pre-made that does not have to 1000% represent your book. Like if you write Shifter, just find something with like, wolf's head and some flowers and some sparkles on it, run some Facebook ads, see if it does better for you. And if it does better for you, then you can go, aha, maybe this should be an avenue I'm pursuing. And if it doesn't, then not yet for my brand.
Yeah. And also, if you want to go one step further, you can also try it for your box set.
Yes, that is a really good idea. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something I've been doing actually since day one, since I made my very first box set, because my, in sci-fi, there's people covers and there's setting covers, and they're both really popular and have both been popular forever. So if my individual books are all people, then the box sets are all object, and vice versa.
That's really smart.
Yeah. Because my thought is like, some people like one, some people like the other. I want to capture both. I want to get both of these groups of people that might like one or the other.
That is so important.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I'll do two more. So what we do here for everybody who's watching, some days, and this is one of those days, at a certain point we stop the main public stream and we just continue the stream for the people that are in our membership. So I'll be doing that shortly, but I'm going to get into 2 more questions before we do that. So I've got Julie Leslie saying, what do you think about illustrations on covers that aren't rom-coms?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. Actually, so I've got 2 ways of collecting data. One is that I look at what's currently selling. The other is I look at what has sold for me in my pre-made sales, because usually the people who have the most money are willing to buy at what is called our early buyout prices. So we sell 2 times. We offer all the covers at one price one day, and then the next day, any cover that didn't sell that day, we cut the price in half. Now, like most businesses, our evil secret is that the half cup price is actually our real price, and then the first price is actually a higher price. I don't know why I'm exposing that I'm an evil overlord, but I am. But what this tells me, what it allows is it allows the people who have the capital and who really want and need and know they can make that investment to be certain that they can purchase that cover and not have to compete on day 2. But what it also tells me is who has money in what genres, because what goes where. So in terms of illustrated, I was not seeing the same activity around illustrated rom-com that I was seeing around illustrated fantasy romance. Now, some of this may just be that my audience, but I have noticed that in the romantasy and dark romance space is where the money is. And so they were the ones who are willing to pay for an illustration. So absolutely in the fantasy space, romance, illustration is still huge, cozy fantasy. And in the romantasy space, what we had that sold really well and got a lot of attention on Facebook was actually object or animal based illustrations. So not people based. So dragons or wolves, versus in the old, and to be fair, we didn't do a lot of people romantasy covers. So I can't say if those wouldn't have gone too, but I've been noticing a lot, if you look at a Fourth Wing style cover, right? So there is definitely an illustrated space around there. So yes. Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, are you seeing, what are you seeing for the rom-com specifically? Are people moving away from illustrated there?
Yes. Okay. Especially steamy sports rom-com, like hockey. Now, again, there's still tons and tons and tons of it out there. And this, because those items are so highly priced, it limits my audience a lot more. So this can just be a function of my own marketing, and it's not a statement about what is currently selling within the marketplace. But I will say that the people within my group and when I've talked to authors is that they're seeing, again, more success with object-based. Now, I was talking to someone who runs a special edition bookstore in Australia, and she's saying that she's seeing a lot of success with illustrated covers over object-based photo covers within her special edition shop. So, take it all with a grain of salt. All this is a single point of data. So I absolutely still think illustrated covers are huge for contemporary. It just seems to be that my personal audience has moved away from that.
Interesting.
So yeah,
I've been did some research recently for some people who were doing rom-coms, and I was seeing that in the top 100, it used to be all like clip art style,
Yeah.
illustrated covers, and now it feels like half of them are actual characters or like photography level object covers and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Rom-com and me had a weird relationship that sale. It was like our worst performing category. So, I mean, maybe I just like all the rom-com authors like decided they didn't want to buy, or I don't, it's like the weather. It's like, who knows?
Yeah, it could be anything.
But like, when I was talking to people, like they were, I think that, they are, they're doing a lot of people-based illustration and stuff like that, but it's the people making money, I think, at least in my group, they were just writing steamier, darker stuff and weren't in the rom-com space. I know there are tons of people making money in rom-com. I didn't find them this go around.
I would be willing to bet that these days, like monster romance does better than rom-com, and of course they would then soak up all those illustrated images.
Yeah, so we did sell our monster illustration cover, but like I remember, like, I think that rom-com, just because like they didn't have the same cash on. I mean, again, I have some rom-com authors going like, you're calling me poor. I'm like, I'm not. But like, I just think that there wasn't as big of a pool as there was for like monster romance or steamy or dark or whatever.
That makes sense. That's good to know. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question, and then we'll move over to our member only stream. So if you are someone who's in our membership and you want to keep watching, there, go to school, and the link is in school in the calendar to watch on YouTube there. Rucha says, how do you choose the right object for a cover? That's a really broad question, but if you have like,
it's about storytelling. So like we just did this hockey pre-made, and like that was an object-based cover, and I was so irrationally proud of myself for thinking of this idea, even though I'm sure A, someone has done it before, and B, it is not that genius, but I was very proud of myself. So like, obviously you want to, for example, this is hockey. We did a reverse harem hockey cover that was object-based. I was like, how do you signal this? And I was like, well, everyone is doing hockey's sticks and pucks, right? And then flowers are the big thing that signal romance. This is something that I saw extensively with testing. If you put a flower on the cover, it is more likely to signal steam and it's more likely to sell. So that's rule number one, is that you basically need objects on your cover that are going to signal the values and emotional tropes of the book, and be non-literal. Generally, like a bad idea would be like, well, I'm writing a book about a orthopedic surgeon, so I need a spine on my cover. It's like, oh no, my friend, no.
Not unless you actually are writing a book about surgery.
Even then, don't do it. Like, I mean, design isn't a literal language, is the important thing to, I think, remember. And something I have to remind myself is that you are communicating to people through a feeling that they get, and you want an object that is going to evoke a feeling. So for romance, a flower evokes a feeling, a sensuality, right? So that's step one. Okay, so then we want to signal the sport, generally, not always, but generally on a sports-based romance cover, you want to do that. So we've got a hockey puck or ice or whatever. So for this cover, because it was reverse harem, I had 3 hockey sticks pointing at a single puck, sort of all covered with flowers, and like the ice was very white with like streaks of gold to get it.
That is really cool. I like
that.
Right?
So that says reverse harem, like implicitly, like so clearly, right? Like, but also not so clearly. Not so clearly that the person feels like you like think that they're dumb. Another cool thing I did was we did like a vampire one, and we had like a chess piece, but it was in silhouette. And so because it was like for vampire mafia, this was a request, which I thought was really cool. I then had like the city coming out of the chess piece. So the chess piece was made out of the city in a way to evoke mafia. And then the skyline itself looked like fangs.
Oh, wow.
So that said vampire. So like that is how you do it. You do it sort of like obliquely, but at the same time, like completely obvious, and yet not actual like human fangs on the cover. You know what I mean? So it's like, say it very clearly, but not like literally.
No, that makes sense. Literally. That's really good. I like that. And both of those sound like really cool covers. All right, folks. We're going to end it here for the mainstream, but we're going to keep going with the other one. So just give me 2 shakes of a lamb's leg, and we'll see you guys next week. So I just hope I do the right ones.
No worries.
It's always a risk. All right. Okay, I think I did it.
I need to.
Oh, wait, no, I didn't. Okay, well, good enough. I have two YouTube ones going. I'm always like, which is the right one to turn off? But I'm just not going to turn either of them off, and we'll just roll that way. So there were a couple of the questions here that I thought were interesting. Alicia says, I've heard about cover testing, the clickiness of a cover on Facebook ads, but how would you incorporate that in working with the clients? That kind of goes back to what you're talking about, how you did these tests.
Yeah, so we're going to be introducing a package in March that will basically be like you pay a set amount and then you get 3 covers to test. And you are only entitled to use one of those covers for yourself. And if you want to purchase the others, then that would be an additional fee. So that's how we're going about it. Making it work numerically is very, very, very challenging because it's like, well, a cover that does not take the same amount of time and effort to design is less likely to perform well. But like, you really got to pay for 3 covers. So like figuring out how to make all of that gel is kind of my big question that I'm trying to work with and think about. But yeah, I'm working on it is my answer.
Okay.
But like the way that I recommend now actually is if, for example, let's say you were to buy a set of pre-mades from me, what I would suggest and what I would offer for like, we have like a retitling fee of like, $30, right? So I would get all of those covers. I would get them all with whatever your first in series title is going to be, and then run Facebook ad testing on each of the 3 covers within the series. See which performs best. Now that's not quite the same as having 3 completely different covers, but in fact, you could buy like, okay, let's say you wanted to buy like, you can buy, and there are people who sell pre-mades for cheaper than me, I'll be honest. But like if you're on a budget, you could buy 1 pre-made here, 1 pre-made here, 1 pre-made here, test all 3. That was how I would do if I was on a budget. If I wasn't on a budget, even I could go right to my site, buy a pre-made for $250. You can buy 3 of them and test them. Is it going to be way more expensive than just buying 1 cover? Absolutely, no question. But for me, if I was doing first in series and didn't have design ability, like that would be the only way I would feel secure. Like, cause like when I did my covers, like the answers were not what I would expected. Like, how would I have known? I would have made the wrong choice. And it wasn't like I was making a crazy choice either. Like it was, it seemed like a logical choice, and it didn't perform terribly, to be fair. Like if you don't have the budget to do testing, you will be okay if you get like a reputable cover. But I'm just like, I am so on the bandwagon for it right now, just because I'm an expert in the field, and like my first intuition was wrong, like, not always, but just like in this small case, so I'm just like, and again, it was like off by like 10 cents. Like it wasn't going to ruin my life, but like, I'm such a success hound. I was like, I can't believe it,
Totally. No, it makes sense. William Stacey says, what are your thoughts on heroic action covers for men? Something more pulpy, illustrations or photo manipulation? Have you done a lot of covers in that realm?
I'm sorry, I have not. And this is like, I think just my own branding, and like, I actually really love doing, like, I did this rebrand of a sci-fi series for a guy that I actually met at their writing workshop. And I loved working on those covers. But because my own branding is so romance heavy, men are not coming to my pink little site with my cute little seal and being like, she's the one to make me my action-based military sci-fi novel. Eventually, if I get my druthers together, like I really want to open like a nonfiction brand. I want to open like a brand that is more just like elite and tailored, not elite, but just more upmarket is the right word, tailored to like people doing more like literary or trad pub vibe stuff. And I'd love to offer a brand for like thrillers and sci-fi that is a more masculine version of what we do.
Yeah.
But that is way down the road. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't answer that question. I'm not in good conscience going to give you talk on a subject that I really don't know enough about.
I really appreciate that, actually, that you don't do that, that you're being cogent to that. Have you done women focused thrillers at all? Like anything in that area? Like,
Yeah,
like,
I have. I really wanted to break into that space. And if you're writing a woman-focused thriller, there are actually some really good premiums on my site for that right now. And I know Jill bought one of them. I'm really excited. And I really study the market for that. That's a genre I love to read. So I would love to do more in that space. But again, I think one of the dangers of niching down in any subject is that by attracting your ideal customer, you therefore repel all the people who are not your ideal customers.
it's
So
very true. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Actually, the funny thing for us is that even though I'm a sci-fi author, like probably less than 2% of our clients are sci-fi because of a whole host of reasons, but partially because of how we've niched down and the circles we've moved in.
yeah.
It's kind of funny how it plays out. So along the lines of women's thrillers, Fiona asks, when you have a series that has a human and a dog, and you have future books coming out, do you need to stay consistent? Do you need to keep the man and the dog, or just drop the others down to the dog? And the same thing for object. If you had a human and an object, could you at a certain point drop down to just the object?
Thriller or cozy, just to be very clear?
It's thriller.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I will say actually we have done a lot of cozy. So caveat, we've done a lot of cozy mystery. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, my understand, and again, I'm on thin ice here speaking about thrillers, not as thin ice as if I try to speak about male sci-fi, which I really would be on thin ice about, but my general understanding is that I have not seen a lot of solo animal covers for thriller. In fact, I haven't seen any as far as I can recall. Maybe there are some, and if they exist and do well, please correct me. Generally I feel like I'm seeing just a lot of landscapes and mostly single male figure, like a classic Mark Dawson style vibe, or single female figure, right? But like I would worry less than you need to be different less than you think, even within the variation like of a series. Like I don't like if you're on book 26, like my feeling is that you're more likely to gain more readers by looking a lot like books 1 through 27 than you are by like doing something that would risk someone breaking that chain. Because you're not trying to get in and like, I feel like what I've seen people do is for those super long series, then breaking them out into like spin-off series within that series and then having a different look there. So like, okay, that's going to be a new entry point. But like, if it's not going to be a new entry point, then like I would go consistency over variation. Like obviously it doesn't need to be identical. And like you could have one with like a man and a dog or one just a man. I think that would be okay. But like I wouldn't do one just a dog. I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah. I can't, as you were talking and you said that, I'm like, I can't think of any where it's been a thriller with just the animal either. It's always been a person, an animal, or just a person.
And I would really, really watch out for that because cozy is just an animal. So
yes, that's a really good point.
If you put an animal on that cover, people are going to think it is a cozy cover. And then when it's branded like a thriller, they're going to get real confused.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, actually, and one thing that's interesting because you brought up again, like how you don't want to be as different as you think and stuff like that. I had one interesting crazy success where I was
awesome.
I did a spin-off series of novellas, partially because the story book got too long and I had to break out an entire subplot into an entirely separate series.
Yeah.
And it was about a woman who she's kind of wild and crazy and is always off getting in trouble. And at one point she got her skin changed to purple so that she could get a job doing being a spokesperson for some kind of company that needed a purple colored woman. So she's like purple from there on out. She just stays purple.
That's awesome.
I just want to change it. And so I knew I need to have a purple woman on the cover of the book. And I also wanted them to stand out. So I'm like, I'm going to do the book covers, purple woman, white backgrounds. So like really well lit white spaceship interior kind of backgrounds, and then pink font. And I'm doing science fiction targeted at men. And the crazy thing is it worked because it still looked really sci-fi and had all the right tropes. Like she's got the gun, she's going pew pew, all that sort of thing. And the font choices, the typography matched a real sci-fi vibe. But they stood out because you would see them in the top 50 and there'd be these bright white books, with purple and pink on them floating around in there, but everything else kind of matched.
Bright colors do very, very, very well on on like Facebook ads or Amazon or whatever. Like, unless you're writing dark romance or you're purposefully need to desaturate to signal luxury or sex or danger, like, and even then, like a pop of a bright color is going to really grab attention. I'm a big believer in high saturation. It does very well.
When it comes to also when it comes to ads, it's all about contrast.
Yes, contrast is huge.
Yeah. So the more I'm sure you check contrast as well for color blindness reasons and all that jazz too.
You know what? No, I need to check color blindness more often. I really should be thinking about that. But what we do is value checks, which I guess works out to being the same, checking in black and white.
If you just most of the time, if you take an image, you just convert it to grayscale. If you can still read everything and see everything, then you're going to pass for color blindness.
And that's hugely important because if oftentimes the cover will show up as black and white on someone's Kindle beyond that. So like you need to, and then obviously contrast is huge. But we do values checks all the time. So
which is for most cases plenty for color blindness. Laura asks, with MMF, do I need all three people on the cover? I'm guessing the answer is no.
So it's really interesting. Like a lot of reverse harem has the established branding for that has become like single woman. Like that is the most popular way to signal that. But we did a bunch of menage covers for my sale and they all went like that at EBO. And to some relatively large name people in the RH space. So clearly there are people that were thinking like, hey, and I know there are people like Lexi Foss has some amazing, like all the people on the cover books that have done well for her. Now those are older. And again, with the audience under 25 shifting to more object-based covers, like again, who knows, but people were picking those up and buying them from us thinking that they were good investments. And I tend to agree. I think that it might be very difficult to advertise, but like this is the devil's bargain of a people cover, right? Which is that one, it might be harder to get younger readers, and two, it might be more difficult to advertise. Boy, howdy, does it grab people and clearly signal what you're writing. So like, and I know that like most of the top performing authors that I've worked with in the romance space, lots and lots and lots and lots of them are still using people covers. A lot.
Yeah, because people covers, it's so clear. The signaling can be so clear what everything's about. But you're right. AMS, like Facebook doesn't care if you have a cover with multiple people on it, but AMS will.
Yeah.
So that can be a problem there.
Yeah. So I mean, so I think that clearly you don't have to. It is not even the standard. I would say you would be not normal if you're writing RH and putting everyone on the cover. But it's kind of hard to say but that does not mean that there are not people who think that it's effective and who are currently doing it. And then it might actually be a very powerful tool because no one else is doing it, because it's almost impossible to find good menage covers.
Well, yeah, and also probably be pretty expensive because you're getting them all done with stock imagery, doing 4 people and getting like the lighting right on them and the shading.
That's why I love Steffi, who did all of our menage covers, and they're all I think really great. They all look like they were just a photo shoot. So
nice.
And
it's obviously more expensive to do all that work.
Yeah, it is. You have like a $75 menage charge, so it's a little bit more expensive, but not like it's not gonna ruin your life.
Wow. So William asks, and this might not be in your wheelhouse either because it's about men. It's actually, maybe it is. I'm thinking about trying another pen name writing in men's romance, harem, and undecided which does better, a pinup type sexy woman like most of the others, or a macho hero type with the woman nearby.
So this is really interesting because I don't read male reverse harem, sorry, but I loved.
Actually, I think this is not reverse harem. It's male.
Sorry, harem. I just say reverse harem so much that's like the only thing that exists for me anymore. Actual harem. But I did get really into Dungeon Crawler, which I know is not reverse harem, but is lit RPG, and I know that not reverse harem, actual harem comes from like a lot of that I see like starting in the lit RPG space.
Yeah, totally.
So I actually do have some familiarity with that because I have spent time on Royal Road reading stuff. I think that what I see a lot is illustrated covers in this space. I would say I don't know. I don't have 1,000% answer to your question, but my instinct would be to clearly and explicitly signal what it is if you can. I'd be really curious, because what I've seen for women happen is that just having a single guy on the cover can perform better than a couple. Like the standard that you see across like all of Mafia is a single dude. And some of that is like, well, then it allows you to be drawn in by this figure and imagine yourself in that space.
Yeah, the self-insert's easier.
Yeah, the self-insert. So like, you know, I would be more inclined, following that logic within the male space, to just have a sexy female figure, but it might be worth it to try couple as well. Like if I was going to write a harem story, and I would do the research obviously, but let's pretend that I can't. I would just do like a different girl for like every little arc, whatever. Like we meet like Sabrina the cat girl here, and now we meet Saluni the slime girl here, and on and on.
The slime girl.
And I have seen these stories on Railroad. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you finding your slime girl, William.
One author I know that's done really well with that. He's not on Amazon anymore because he got banned from KU a couple of years ago. Was Michael Scott Earl. Yeah, Michael Scott Earl was actually the #1 sci-fi author, and he was doing that sort of thing, and his was like the male main character with the women hanging off of him.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that doing really well.
And I do think actually that men are a little bit better at self-inserting with a super attractive man than women are, because women have a lot more societal pressure that creates self-doubt over attractiveness, and men don't have as much of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's much easier for them to be like, yeah, that's what I look like already. Thanks.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, because like any sort of like badass, you know, male adventure book always has the dude. Well, not always, but very often has the dude, and that doesn't stop men from buying it.
That's fascinating.
You know? I think
all of reverse harem has the lady. So like clearly women don't struggle with this. I think it's just when it's like the couple.
Yeah, the couple.
It's hard, because then it's like that somehow feels exclusionary. Whereas if you've got like one woman with like 6 dudes, or like one guy with 6 dudes, you're like, oh, that's me in that scene. But it's like, that's 2 people. Like, can I like slide between one of you? No? Okay.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it too. I don't know.
I'm just guessing here, which I shouldn't be doing. It's bad. But
well, we're speculating. We're
making hypotheses.
Yeah.
It's up to you to prove them, William.
Yeah. You mentioned object covers are doing well in contemporary, but I see a lot of model covers in my universe doing well. Model for ebook and discrete paperback is what I'm doing right now.
Yes, I think that's the standard right now. The standard right now is model for ebook and discrete for paperback. But what I will say is that when I was running ad testing, and this was the dark billionaire. So this isn't Mafia, which is a little different, but like actually Dark Billionaire, the people cover got devoured by the object-based cover. Like I said it was 10 cents a click more, but I think it was more than that. And it wasn't just that, it was that Facebook served the ad a lot more. And it got a lot more engagement. It got a lot more newsletter signups. And that just might've been that one object-based cover was better because I wasn't using exclusive stock. Right. Like I did just find, a stock image. And maybe it just was that person cover was weaker. I think that there like absolutely the standard model for, I believe, high performing like Mafia, like even like you see in Small Town is like exclusive stock image plus like discrete paperback or non-exclusive stock image. But which is why I was surprised for myself when I ran Facebook ad testing that model didn't bear out for me. But it absolutely might bear out for you, and it's clearly bearing out for a lot of other people. So might have just been I had a bad Tuesday.
Yeah. No, I really like sort of the conclusions you've come to, which is that there's no crystal ball that gives you the right answer. You have to test it. Because that's where I've been with Facebook ads for years now. It's like, I'm like, we're going to test all the options because I can't tell you which one's going to work better because everybody's wrong all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was kind of how I felt, which is that you owe it to yourself to test. And when you test, you need to know that you're testing the correct options, which is so like you need to have a couple of really strong hypotheses. Mm-hmm. and then figure out which works best for you. Yeah,
absolutely. So there's one question that we've kind of tangentially touched upon in almost all of the questions we had talked about it or had laid out in advance. But one of them that was interesting we haven't talked about is how do you foresee the evolution of book cover design in the digital age proceeding?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I think that I see people really moving to print. Like when I posted my special edition package, it got a ton of interest. I'm doing a lot of special editions for people. People are really excited about making the book be a luxury bespoke product.
Mm-hmm.
That is one way that I really, really, really see things moving. When it comes to ebook cover design, I see, I see that overall cover design, basically, I feel like what's happening is there's used to be trad pub here and indie here, right? And overall, the Venn diagrams are closing until it like indie covers are looking more trad and trad covers are looking more indie. That is another big like trend I see. I see a lot too that like I think that this was something I found out even before I was looking at data. What I was seeing was that there are kind of these bands of book covers and of markets. And I don't know if you know, but like basically before self-publishing, my personal theory of the case of self-publishing is that from like 2013 to like I'd say 2020, or really now, self-publishing really ate up like the whale readers, right? Like romance, mystery, like genre fiction. And the style of covers like really reflected that. And it basically kind of took the people really read a lot and didn't want to spend a lot of money per book. And now I think what's happening is that self-publishing has really reached the general market in like a huge way, to the point of like people are in Barnes and Nobles. Like you go in Barnes and Noble and like they are there. And these are people who are getting like print deals with TradPub just for print. Like, and so what's happening is that when people get to that level, they want more upmarket covers that are designed to appeal to people who are reading fewer books a year. And so they need less signals about what genre it is, because they're not just going to pick up a book because it's a mystery. They're going to need to be wooed to this specific story and this specific brand. They're going to need to told that this book is quality and worth their time, because their time is more valuable than their money, that reader.
Right.
And so I feel like the mistake to make would be to think that if you are fully marketing in category 1 to whale readers, that you should have a category 2 cover. Usually what I feel like what happens is people will really start in category 1, they'll get a good base of audience, and then they graduate to category 2 as they grow their audience and they're looking to expand upward. And like some people will start off in category 2 for sure. Yeah, a lot of it depends on the kind of book that you're writing and how like high concept is it and all that kind of stuff. But I think that indie design is really embracing and thinking about this upmarket category a lot more.
That's really interesting way of breaking that down. I like that a lot. And one of the things I do tell people a lot when they're researching covers, I'm like, don't research the best sellers. Because they're, unless you're already a bestseller, which usually they're not. But if they are, then I would say to do that. But like the very top tier bestsellers that have like 70,000 reviews, like don't research those covers, because they're doing different things.
Here's what you should research. So if you look at like Sarah J. Maas's new cover, right, which lots of people hate, which is that medieval style lion for A Court of Thorns and Roses printed on a red background. Now, if you look at the first style cover of that, which was like a person illustration, like cut off at the eyes with like the thorns, that's how it used to look.
Yeah.
Why did they change those covers? Well, they wanted to look less YA and more NA, and they wanted to look adult. They wanted to look like Game of Thrones. They wanted to signal this is a book that that is not. They want to go from category 1 to category 2. But like looking at that difference actually is really instructive. Because I think that, if you're in a trad pub and they've got a category 1 cover, that cover can actually be really useful to study as a ways, because like there are some kinds of covers that like an upmarket reader like would be actively alienating to a category 2 reader. And so if you can find that's where I think object covers come in. Like a person-based cover generally is going to be quite alienating to a category 2 reader. But it'll be very, 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 very powerful for a category 1 reader. So it's like doing that.
Really good. And a lot of times you can go to Goodreads and you can go back and look at all the covers that a given book has had, and can be pretty
Exactly.
instructional to see
That's
like,
super
here's
good
the
idea.
shitty one they had before they sold any books. There's the one that actually made them, and then now this is what they're doing as they're advancing. But you
Yes,
want to kind of look at like,
exactly.
what was the cover that made their career?
Yeah. What got them to this level, and then what takes them to that level, because they're different needs.
Totally. Well, I think we've gone through everything, and I really appreciate you spending the hour chatting with us.
No, it's so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
So you've got, just sort of finally, you've got a lot of services that you offer at the Book Brander. You want to sort of like highlight some things people might be interested
so like
in?
our bread and butter is custom book cover design. We have a bunch of different levels. We have our junior designers, who right now are very affordably priced at $300 a cover.
That's good to know.
Yeah, they're great. Those prices are going to be raising in the new year to $349, so still very reasonable. And obviously, if you're a current client of that and you just went, what? Don't worry. It'll apply like it would be like for for a new series, or like one book cover after, whichever comes first. So it's not like we're going to like screw you in the middle of a series or something. And so that's what we offer. That's our bread and butter. We also have illustrators on staff. They range in price from like $1,000 to $1,700 a cover, depending on how many figures and which of our illustrators you pick. We've got two amazing ones. We've got Katarina, who's done special editions for Laura Thalassa, Adelaide Forrest, Broken Bonds. I cannot remember that author's name, but she's a huge reverse harem author. And then Melody, who is new to us, who's amazing, who did the cute little gargoyle cover on our site. And then we also offer, we've got like, basically, if there's some image that you need for your book, whether it's Facebook ad, a special edition case, a bookmark, we do it. And that's kind of priced in there. So, and then we have our senior designers. They are $375 a cover, and then I am $500 a cover.
Okay.
And I'm really trying to move away from doing a ton of designing, because I'm much more, I just think that I'm much better at just directing my team to do the design than I am to just be in the weeds cutting out objects in Photoshop. It's just not, I love the design, and I love working on projects that get me really excited, which is why I'm really excited to be working for all my current clients. Every single project that I take on is one that I'm like genuinely excited to be doing. But my goal is to be just sort of moving to really only doing that going forward.
Cool. So and then in the future you are going to be offering a service around helping people doing Facebook ad testing of cover options.
In the future we'll be offering that as a package. We're rolling out 3 new packages next year. We're rolling out a Kickstarter package, a character art package, and Facebook ad testing. None of that is officially launched. If you are really interested in being someone to beta test with that with us, actually, that would be great to send me a message. We might be able to negotiate a slightly discounted rate, especially for the Facebook ad testing part of it, just so that obviously sharing of the data is really interesting. So if you're willing to share data, we'll make that into our pricing somehow. I don't know. Again, that's all very nebulous. That's like really my 2025 goals. Those aren't things that we currently.
But those are good things to get in the ground floor on if anybody's interested.
For sure. If you're really interested in those, send us an email.
Yeah, I think Kickstarter will continue to be bigger and bigger, and I won't talk the price you mentioned earlier, but unless you want to, but it seemed very reasonable for you to be able to create like this.
Yeah, we're going to be offering that. That's going to be $500 for the package.
Cheap
it's really cheap for all the images, and that also includes a consult call. It's a steal. We'll probably end up having to raise it after we see how much it costs. So if you want that, PM us now, because that might be a bad business decision I've just made that you can now take advantage of.
Exactly. Yeah, be part of the beta and help Sylvia learn that she should charge more for that.
Yeah, and teach me that I'm an idiot.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. It was great to have you, and thanks everybody for tuning in and hanging out as we talk about all this.
So wonderful. Thank you so much, Mel. It was such a joy to meet you.
You bet. Awesome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Oh no, she left right away.